Well, good morning. Yet another day, the 22nd of March, 2023. I'm Keith Hayes. This is Mirador Television Broadcasting. And I use the word very broadly, broadcasting. It's supposed to be called narrowcasting now. Who the hell understands that? Broadcasting from the White Hart Hotel in Lewes, East Sussex. And what we're going to do, as we normally do, is take a look at the front pages in a moment. But you know, they are dominated today by the fact that Boris Johnson is going to appear before a select committee with the House of Commons. That waste ground of untalented people that faff around about all sorts of things. When I was ruminating as I came in, you know, Boris, and somebody said yesterday, he's like Marmite. You either hate him or you love him. There is no in between. And I have to say, if I look at it from a very practical point of view, and forget the politics, and actually the trouble with politicians is they politicize everything, is we hate people who do things. We hate movers and shakers. And that's what politicians hate. They hate reform. They hate change. They don't want anything to take away from their free bars and their free meals and their subsidized travel and their subsidized housing and so on. So all the things that they've managed to vote themselves in the last few years, ever since we started to pay politicians, is they hate anything that might threaten that way of life, even if it is in the interests of the populace, the people they are supposed to serve. And Boris most certainly was a threat. Margaret Thatcher was a threat. Actually, eventually, Tony Blair became a threat. Now, they are all controversial characters from both sides of the political divide. But the fact of the matter is, whether you liked what they did or you didn't like what they do, they did it. They got on with it. And for some reason, Boris has evoked similar sort of emotions. And what is he doing? He's got everybody going one way or another, up, down, in between, and yay or nay or whatever. The thing that is a problem, and it's not his fault really in this instance, is that they are all looking for what's going to happen to Boris. Can he make a political comeback, etc., etc.? And they are not a bit bothered about the affairs of state, the affairs that affect our day-to-day operations. Not a bit of it. And I found it interesting because the Conservatives locally put out a thing that they called In Touch, a local newspaper. Everybody's doing it. This happens to be the Conservative one. And the local MP, Maria Caulfield, said, I have spoken to the Conservative Party. She is the Conservative Party. But it just shows just how they feel that they need to distance themselves from what's going on. If you've got the conviction of being a Conservative, be a bloody Conservative. If you've got the conviction of being Labour, be Labour. If you've got the conviction of being a Lib Dem or a Green, be them as well. I've made my position quite clear, is I don't have any faith in any political party. I prefer the independents. People say, oh, it did never work. Well, it's worked in other parts of the world. Why can't we make it work? I don't know. I'm just losing patience with the whole political situation. But anyway, the I is D-Day for Johnson. The ex-Prime Minister drags Sunak into the inquiry as he fights to save his political career. Well, for God's sake, Sunak was part of that at the time when Boris and lockdown and all the rest of the nonsense, the Christmas cake, was in the ascendancy. Why shouldn't he be brought in? Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson will be questioned by MPs in a televised hearing later today. Mr. Johnson's appearance before the Privileges Committee comes after he admitted misleading Parliament, although not deliberately, over Partygate, a stale old Christmas bloody cake and a half bottle of open champagne. The paper says a comeback for the former Prime Minister may be supported by some ministers if he survives the committee's report. Well, it's a loaded committee, for one thing, and he will still have a big role to play in the future of the Conservative Party. Just forget whether you like him, don't like him. Mr. Marmite, is the system fair? And it's not fair. The only thing is that at least it's not fair for them amongst themselves. The trouble is that really runs through Parliament. A lot of what they do is not fair, and it's not fair to the ordinary citizen. Reform has got to come. And if this is the bloke to actually punch a hole in the status quo at the moment, then so be it. And people locally who listen to me, or viewers, will say, Keith, how could you possibly support this man? I don't support the man necessarily. I met his father. Never met him. Well, that's not quite true. I sort of met him. But the fact is, he is colourful, and at the moment, he is the only leader that we seem to have. So why slit their throats? Because they don't want reform. They don't want to be told to get on with it. They don't want to be told, hey, there is an electorate out there that actually puts you in power and they expect you to do something. Oh, my goodness me, we can't do that. Can we get ourselves out of the free bar in time to have our free subsidised luncheon? To get into our heavily subsidised transport? To be taken to our heavily subsidised home? Oh, goodness me, no. Absolutely no. So the Metro also dedicates its front page to Mr. Johnson admitting he did mislead Parliament, but saying it was unintentional. The story goes on to say his political career may end if he is found guilty of contempt. And the Daily Star, oh, you've got to get this. Even if you only sneak into the newsagents to see the front page on the side where they sell the newspapers, it's worth it. The Star, Pinocchio, I'm not a liar, I'm just a moron. Bozo's 100% legit defence over number 10 parties. The Star takes a blunt approach in reporting Mr. Johnson's admission over Partygate. The front page has a large image of the former Prime Minister with a photoshopped image of Pinocchio's nose, which grew after he told lies. Those of you who are not familiar with the children's story of Pinocchio, he was a puppet with human characteristics. Whenever he told a lie, his nose grew. So they're showing Mr. Johnson, Boris, with his nose is extended. It is amusing, I must say, even if the issue is serious. Right, okay. Now, the Daily Telegraph moves away from that a little bit. And what it does is it takes up the issue of... I think this is right. Yes, of Keir Starmer, and it says hypocrite Starmer to avoid tax on pension. Right. Okay. So they're going to have a go. Here it gets personal about how they duck and dive. The Daily Telegraph leads on Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer being accused of hypocrisy over a unique pension deal. The paper says he can benefit from following his time as Director of Public Prosecutions. The front page also has a response from Home Secretary Suella Braverman about the Casey report into the Met Police. She says calling the force institutionally racist is not helpful. Oh, there you go. See, you get an inquiry, they come up with a solution or a recommendation. And, oh, gosh, oh, no, we can't have that. Blah, 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 blah. Come on, Braverman, for God's sake. The coppers are out of it. That needs reform. I mentioned that word again, reform. Oh, that will only upset Suella, but it'll upset almost every one of the 650 MPs who are sitting in the House of Commons. Reform? Can't have reform. Oh, no. That's a filthy word. Braverman says calling the force institutionally racist is not helpful, and there is also a look at Boris Johnson's defence that he was reassured by aides that no rules were broken during the Partygate gatherings. Oh, dear. The Mirror. it goes back to Boris, and it's got. I mean, the Mirror has lost my respect for the moment. So it's got a list of. It was my birthday and I didn't even get cake. There was a party and I was tucked up in bed. It's all that sort of, the paper has gone down to the standard of politics, a bit grovelly and gruesome. The Daily Express. Boris ready for battle. I acted in good faith. The Express says Boris is ready for battle and that he acted in good faith as he prepared to be quizzed over Partygate later today. Elsewhere on the front page, the Express reports Putin vows to respond after the UK sends ammunition to Ukraine, and that the Princess of Wales is leading a new drive to help working families amid the ongoing cost of living crisis. Right, okay. Well, at least somebody has got on the front page some of the things that are still key. We are helping the Ukrainians in a very real way. A lot of other people are too. It's not just us. But Putin loves to have a poke at us for some reason. And so what he said is, you do that and I'm going to act against you. How is he going to act against us? Well, of course, he can bring the fuel crisis back, I suppose, one way or another. He could do something militarily nonsensical, but I doubt it. But then again, I was saying that this man will invade when others were saying, oh, no. I have spent some time in Russia. In fact, I was talking to some Russian friends about my time there just last night. And the fact is, this man is unpredictable. And he could easily do something to really upset us. And we really must not take him lightly. That's very typical of the Russian leader. Shh, don't say too much, right? And we must be aware. The Daily Mail, bullish Boris up for the fight. Okay, let's go back to bullish Boris. Right. Nearly all the papers are about Boris's. The Mail says he's coming out fighting with his 52-page defence dossier ahead of the 4-hour grilling he will get from MPs. The front page also gives details of the court case involving US actress Gwyneth Paltrow, who is being sued in the US following a collision on a ski slope. Oh, dear. Yeah, don't get into anything like that in the States. They sue at a drop of a hat. Mind you, we will in this country too now. Okie dokie. The Times. Well, it goes back to a banner lead over Putin threatens a response over Britain's toxic tank shells. And so once again, there is an awareness of this in the national press on the front pages. But the main story is the pill and coil shown to raise breast cancer risk. Let's see what it has to say about that. The Times focuses on a study from Oxford University that says taking the pill or any other hormonal contraception increases the risk of breast cancer by 25%. Scientists have looked at the NHS records of nearly 10,000 women under 50 who had a diagnosis of breast cancer between 1956 and 1996, and 2017. So here is a study that says if you take some of those things, contraception and help with the hormonal things, is that you're taking a risk. True or false? Well, they're scientists. They've followed the scientific principles. We know that, like everything else, that science is not a god. It is known to be wrong, and that one has to be very careful taking what it has to say. But in this particular case, perhaps the ladies will need to think twice, having read this report. Let's see. The son is just running away from everything. I'll never do drugs again after the pal died. The son has an interview with pop star Ed Sheeran, in which he vows never to take drugs again. Financial Times. Right. Its banner headline is Xi backs Putin on Ukraine. Well, that was really yesterday's story. The two leaders met and shook and pledged support for one another. Those people who understand the way that both the Chinese and the Russians think diplomatically is that Xi is actually playing Putin and saying, you keep at it, chaps. We're behind you all the way, because what he wants is for Putin to exhaust himself, and therefore the other leading dissident, if you want to use that word, dissident power will have lost its spark, but also that we in the West will be so war weary that when they stop saber rattling and start to actually use their weapons, is that we won't have the will to stop them. But the falling life expectancy triggers a delay to the raising of the state pension age. Right. The pension is the raising of the pension age to 68 was going to take place, this session of Parliament. But apparently, we are no longer at the height of all living to 150. I'm 83, and I rather think that I could go at any time. So what the hell? I consider that I've been lucky. And yet you'll have conversations where people say, oh, he died at 87 or 88. That's quite young, because more and more people are reaching 100. And so 90 was not considered to be an age that you had to worry about. But now that's coming back down again. So in raising the state pension to match those people who are going to be centenarians, centennials, centurions, or whatever the word is, will not have to be a burden on the state for quite as long. But that's going to be put back, or they're not going to vote on it just yet because of the controversial nature. The FT focuses on the image of President Xi shaking hands with Putin when they met in Moscow. And then it goes on to with the state pension age to 68 have reportedly been delayed amid falling life expectancy. The current state pension age is 66, and it's due to rise to 68 after 2044. Yeah, a bit beyond my remit, I think. Right, okay. That's where we stand nationally. The local stuff is sort of it's a strange amalgam, really. But basically, most of it is that local parties are naming their candidates for the elections in May. I think it's May that we go to the polls. And that everybody is gearing up. And in fact, speaking to my political connections here, is we are, after the 27th, that's 22nd, the 27th of March, entering what's known as Purdah. So we have to be very careful about what we say in support of any individual. Now, there is a caveat, thank goodness to me, for us, because we can say, hey, he's a jolly good fellow, as long as the candidate hasn't come to us and say, hey, would you please say, I'm a jolly good fellow? If it's our independent view and we can support that, then we can say, so-and-so is a jolly good fellow. So the Worthing, I think it's Worthing, is saying that they've got a larger number of independent candidates running than they've ever had. I think something like 10. Whereas Hastings organisers exclude independent candidates for some reason. But I am all for, a particularly to local level, independent candidates. I want people who care about this community. I don't want people who care about the party. And I'm afraid the lot we've got in at the moment, in the main, care about their party. They push Green policies, or they push Lib Dem policies, or they push Conservative policies. I want somebody who will stand up and say, I am Joe Bloggs. This is what I think is good for our community. And yes, I've got a favourite candidate. I'm not going to embarrass him this morning by mentioning him, but I've got a favourite candidate, and I hope, like hell, that he does very well, because he served his community extremely well. He's very competent, very capable, and he only does things after he's thought them out very carefully. So those really that's the local news. It's nothing startling. You think twice, think carefully about what it is that you want, because frankly, I can't give tuppence. I really can't get excited about any of the local parties, not one. They're all strutters. Look what we've done. I had 3 newspapers, or party newspapers, through my door, all claiming to have done the same thing, whether it's the bus station or whether it's local schools or whatever. They've all done it. This is what the Conservatives have done. This is what the Labour have done. This is what the Liberals have done. It's all BS, of course. All they do is they look at things and attribute to what they say they've done. Actually, in some instances, their party has, but because of an individual, not because of the party. There is a wonderful movie, if you can find it, called Brewster's Millions, in which a young man is left 300 million or something of the sort. I know 50 million, right? Yeah. And he's got to spend it without any return, is to access the 300 million, which his great uncle, who he never met, has left him. And one of the ways he tries to spend it is by going into politics. And he runs on the independent candidate, and he says his slogan is none of the above. Well, that's what I say, is none of the above. Let's get some decent independents. Amongst the political parties, there are decent independents. I'm not saying that all local politicians are garbage. No, on the contrary, it's the parties that are. They can't see the wood for the trees, and they've forgotten why they're there. And actually, they're irrelevant. So that's the way where I stand. I hope that doesn't upset you too much. And if it does, good. We need upsetting. One thing that we don't say on the station is, oh, everything is nice, everything in the garden is rosy. No, we do not. Right. Okay, what's the time? It's 8:55. We go until 9 o'clock. And then what we do is we take a half-hour break before we come back. And this morning, we are going to have Stuart Dolby with it's energy matters, and Stuart is extremely good at. He in fact he is well ahead of the field when it comes to what's happening in the energy world. So I know that he's been working hard over the last couple of days, because he thinks that there is plenty for us to actually pay attention to, and so he should. Are we able? Are we able? Do we have? Yes, we do. Now, this is always the most important thing to most of us at this time of day.
I know you laugh every day like it's your last.
Breakfast. It's gusty out there. 8:57. A couple of minutes. We're going to hop off, go outside, get blown around by the wind, come back refreshed, better than a sauna, ready to rejoin you at 9:30 with Energy Matters. And afterwards, we will have possibly an interview with Stuart, but also Suzanne Mucho, our New York correspondent, or one of the two, who has been touring the Gulf for various reasons, will be joining us and telling us what's going on, because I know she'd been talking to Hillary Clinton in the period that she'd been away. And that in itself must be fascinating. So it's 8:59. Time to say our first Toodle Pip. Toodle Pip. And we'll see you in half an hour.